I had literally had a voice screaming in my head. Stay put, stay put, stay put. Undercover comes around the corner, and the guy comes around the corner right behind him, taking his T-shirt, putting it over his head, make a mask out of it. So I get on the radio, robbery, robbery. Next, the guy pulls out a gun, gun, gun. So now I bail out. He puts the gun to the back of the undercover's head. As I'm trying to get an angle running towards the undercover, the guy's got the gun right at the undercover, and I can see the muscles kind of flex in his forearm. Literally, a voice went off in my head, you got to get in this.
Tim, by way of an introduction, I wanted to provide a brief overview of your 25-year law enforcement career. Your law enforcement career began in March of 1988 with the Rochester, New York Police Department. Some of your assignments included patrol, the tactical unit, and the special investigations section where you served as an investigator for 21 years. You are a police instructor and a NATIA-certified technical investigator. Additionally, from January of 2002 to October of 2004, you worked part-time for the Department of Defense, training Special Forces personnel on electronic and physical surveillance. You retired from the Rochester Police Department in May of 2013. Tim, thanks for agreeing to sit down and share your story with us.
You're welcome.
So why did you choose law enforcement, and why the Rochester, New York Police Department?
So my dad was an electrical contractor, and he owned his own business. I worked for him since I was like 5. Almost on a full-time basis once I hit my teens, and I hated it. Every house you went into was the same. You nail up boxes, you drill holes, you pull wires. So, now I'm getting around 16 years old. I got caught skipping school. My dad got mad at me. Says, well, you're not going to work for me if you don't have an education. I'll get you a shovel. You'll be a ditch digger. So now I started to panic. What am I going to do with my life? I don't want to be an electrician. I'm not going to dig ditches. And like I said, about that time I'm driving. And I remember vividly, there was a really bad snowstorm, and I was always impressed with the New York State Troopers' uniforms, their Stetson hats. Thought they looked really sharp. And I'm driving down the highway, and there's a trooper out in the ditch, pushing a car out of the ditch in the middle of the snowstorm, and his uniform's getting trashed with snow and slush. And I got thinking, man, that's a noble job. He's out there helping push this poor lady out of the ditch. And then I got thinking about the job. You're driving around, you're doing different things, you're seeing and doing things that most people don't get to do. So that really piqued my interest. On a side note, the nobility kind of goes away after a few years. After about 3-4 years on a job, it's more like, why is this freaking idiot driving so fast? I got to get out of my car now and get in that crap. But anyways, I interviewed a bunch of troopers, and it really interested me. And the reason I ended up on the Rochester Police Department, they were the first agency that hired me.
How many departments do you think you tested for?
3 total. I got a job offer with San Diego, California, and I almost accepted that. I haven't heard anything from Rochester at the time. Buddy of mine was going through the New York State Corrections Academy, and he called me and I said, look, Bill, did you hear from, because he and I went out there and took the test. Did you hear from San Diego? He goes, no. I said, well, I got offered the job. I'm thinking about going out there. He says, don't. He says, you're getting hired. I said, well, how do you know that? He says, I can't tell you. Well, it turns out he was going through the academy with the girlfriend that was in charge of background recruitment.
So tell me a little bit about the Rochester Police Department. That might lead to some more questions I have, but how big is it? And you know what, I've never, ever been up that way. So kind of describe it as if you're describing it to a tourist.
Yeah, so Rochester, the city itself, used to be pretty prosperous. It was the headquarters for Kodak that employed over 130,000 people. Xerox, Ragu, Bausch & Lomb were all headquartered there. It was a really thriving city till, like every other city, a lot of those companies moved out of the country to save money and regulation. But anyways, the department is about 700 sworn members. The population of the city now is about 225,000 people.
So a department that big, when you're applying for that agency, I mean, back in the 80s, early 90s, everybody was applying for cop jobs. What's that applicant pool look like? Any idea how big it is?
Well, here's the thing. Like I said, I always wanted to be a state trooper. At the time I took the state police test, there were 13,000 people that took it.
Wow.
I scored a 97 on the test, and it wasn't good enough to get on. I scored a 99 on the Rochester police test, and I actually didn't get hired for that academy class. They hired me for the next class 6 months early, and they put me at headquarters taking reports over the phone, which really gave me a leg up because every report that was written in the patrol section came through headquarters, and I read every single one of them every night. So I got a good idea how reports were written and investigative steps. So
that's awesome. So does Rochester have its own academy, or are you going to academy with a bunch of other cities?
No, they have a combined county academy. Any agency within the county that's putting somebody through the academy, we all went together, but Rochester's the largest. I think there were 40, 45 of us from Rochester with a handful of deputies, handful of town recruits.
Any memorable experiences from the academy?
No, but I'm former military, so it was really a piece of cake for me as far as the regimental part of it. And I screwed off a lot, and the first test scared the crap out of me. 75 is passed, and I got a 76. So I really studied hard after that. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of camaraderie. We went out a lot, probably too much, but it was a good experience. Oh, on a side note, I was working for my father doing electrical work, and we actually did electrical work at the academy during one of the classes. And I kind of found this is probably about the time I just started becoming interested in law enforcement. And I vividly remember standing in the utility room looking out while class was going on. And that first day of the academy was, it's funny. It was pretty neat.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Sit there, I'm looking at the utility class and thinking, 4 years ago I was standing there doing a job I hated.
Yeah. Any first memories of being at the Rochester Police Department?
Oh yeah, my very first day we wore grays in the academy. First day in FTO, got the nice blue uniform. First call out of roll call was suicide by shotgun.
Wow.
And I still remember the address, 88 Arbutus Street. Walked in, and the guy, it looked like somebody cut him off right at his nose and set a pizza on his head. And, the funny thing is, as tragic as that is, I'm standing there thinking, this is really cool. I'm first day in a job, and I'm seeing, one of the reasons I got in a job was to see and do things that most people don't get to do. And I'm standing there thinking, well, this is it, day one. I'm seeing something, and my FTO took me out for pizza that day. I think he was trying to rattle me. It didn't bother me.
So what's roll call like in an agency? You have a roll call?
Oh, yeah.
And what's that like at an agency that big?
It's like any other. Our agency, we have 8 different patrol sections at the time. It was decentralized. So your roll call, I think you'd have 10 people on a shift. So it wasn't a huge roll call. And it was like any other typical roll call.
So give me that 30,000-foot perspective of your career.
Well, I did, so FTO, got assigned the patrol section, like every new recruit does. Did 11 months in patrol. First few months, I just covered for guys who were on their days off, and then I got my own car beat, which I took a lot of pride in. I started in the 88, so it was still kind of pretty old school. Everything was about car beat integrity. You didn't let another car into your car beat unless it was a backup that you needed. If a call for service came in, you were on lunch, you broke from it and took that call because you didn't want anybody else in your car beat. I was proud that I got the worst car beat in the section, which, I thought they showed a lot of confidence in me. And I learned a lot, made a lot of arrests, gained a lot of experiences in that 11 months, which got me into the tactical section. I was the youngest guy at the time to get in there that I'm aware of. I had less than 11 months on the road, got an attack unit, did the attack unit for 2 years, and experienced just about everything you can in there. And then went to Special Investigation Section, Narcotics Unit, where I was assigned to the Technical Surveillance Unit. I did all the electronic surveillance. Spent 21 years there, a part of just about every investigation you can imagine, from homicides to $11 million armored car robberies to political cases, you name it.
Carbide integrity, I want to follow up on that. So does that mentality, to your knowledge, do you think that still exists today?
No. And so we had a mayor that was our chief at one point. Actually, while he was chief, he decentralized the 8 patrol divisions and made it an east side, west side, greatly increased the size of the patrol sections. So there's no way a guy could keep up with calls in a patrol section that's 5 times the size as it used to be. And you lose a lot with that. When I worked patrol, I knew every bad guy in my patrol beat. I knew all the decent people. They all knew me. You just don't have that anymore. It's my understanding they're leaning back towards decentralization now.
The tactical unit, talk a little bit about what that is and what your responsibilities. What'd you wear every day? What'd you drive, and what'd you do?
So the tactical unit is mainly anti-crime or crime suppression unit. When I was in it, it was an 18-man unit. It was the only unit in the department where you had a uniform division, where you had a partner. And we worked plain clothes probably half the time and uniform the other half. We were the department's honor guard. And because of that, we got brand new cars every year, which is nice. Unlimited wash tickets to wash the cars. You were the only one that drove that car, so it wasn't a clapped out piece of crap. It had its advantage, disadvantage. If you don't get the right partner, it makes for a long day. And I cycled through a few guys and finally got a partner that all I had to do was, we looked at each other and knew whether this guy was going to jail or not. It was a pleasure working with him. We did everything from man down details, prostitution details, where you'd work plain clothes, picking up the hookers. When we worked uniform, it was more crime suppression as far as if there was say the east side had a problem in a park at a certain time of day. We'd roll up there, all 9 cars, 2-man cars with the lights going, and it inevitably caused problems. It created more strife than it solved, but like any war, through the chaos, it actually, in the end, solved issues. I can remember our lieutenant was pretty hard charged, and we did bar closings too. If you had a bar there was always fights at, we'd show up, and of course people would end up throwing rocks and bottles at us. And I remember he's out in front one night, and he's got his nightstick, and he goes, "Go get them, boys!" It was a Donnybrook, but that was the last night that bar was open. We were able to put so many code violations on it closed down.
So you only do about 11 months in patrol and you roll into the tactical unit. How is it that you got selected so early in your career for that?
I think because just prior to that, they were coming out with every officer's stats. It showed the number of traffic tickets, field interview forms, misdemeanor arrests, felony arrests, how many they made and where they ranked within the department. And I'm in Lake Section, was really, I had the worst car beat in Lake Section, but it wasn't nearly the worst section in the city. And I was top 10 out of them, all of them. And I think that's what really pushed me over to get in there.
And then how long are you in the tactical unit?
2 years.
And then you have the opportunity, do you apply for SIS? Is that how that works?
Yeah, just like any other job in the department, they'll post the opening. you apply for it. You do what they call the interdepartmental correspondence, and which is really tough to sell yourself because it's got to be a one-pager, and then they interview you, and that's where you kind of sell yourself. And the more specialized, generally, like if it's a patrol thing, like a school resource officer, it's by seniority. But the more specialized the unit gets, the more it's on your merits.
So when you look back at your career, what do you consider to be some of the high points? What are you most proud of?
As far as being proud of, I would say the work I did as surveillance tech. One job comes to mind. We did one of those storefronts where we had undercover officers running it, and guys would come in and sell them stolen property, guns. We even bought some cars. But that is a very high risk operation to run. So we had cameras throughout the place that I installed. Many of them, all of them but one covert. And I buried a photo cell in the countertop of the storefront. And the undercover had asked the guy to see his license, and he'd say, "Look, I'm not doing anything with it," because they'd get all nervous about it. And what he would do is slide the license over the little pinhole I put in the countertop, and I wired that photo cell to activate a pan-tilt zoom camera, and it would zoom right in and get the guy's.
Wow.
I mean, it would fill the screen, the guy's license. Wired it with panic buttons. The undercover could push a panic button, and we had our SWAT team staged right near it was a hidden door. Basically, it was a china cabinet that was on hinges. The undercover could drop down. We had 1-inch steel plates behind the countertop. If a gun got pulled on him, he could drop down to the floor. SWAT would come in and just make him Swiss cheese. But anyways, this just a sample of all. I had large monitors back where SWAT was staging, and you could see every angle of the outside, the inside, and they could hear the audio perfect. And one of the state guys had mentioned to me, he says, "Look, we were going to run one of these ourselves, so we traveled all over the country and looked at some of the best setups." He said, "This beats it, all those hands down." So that was kind of a accumulation of everything I'd learned and put together to be able to wire that storefront like that.
So did you find yourself leaning on any of your experiences working with your father in putting that stuff together?
I kind of sold that to get the job.
Yeah.
Saying I could run wires, in existing walls, and it helped a lot. It helped to get the job, and it helped because a lot of the stuff we did had to be hidden. I mean, I'm talking, we wired up houses with cameras surreptitiously, cars, microphones. So yeah.
What's the training? Is there additional training that you went to?
That's where NATIA comes in.
Okay.
NATIA stands for National Technical Investigators Association. It's basically an association for all us technical surveillance geeks, from FBI, DEA. They all. It's really an international association. When you go to their conventions, you'll have people from all over the world that attend it. They have schools in Florida. I've been all over the country for it. NATIA would hold semi-annual regional conferences, and these were more like workshops. Like I said, Florida has 2 or 3 different schools that'll teach you the basics all the way up. And quite honestly, I would, if you got downtime, my office was basically a shop. We had everything from drill presses to soldering irons to you name it. I would build my own surveillance kits, plug and play kits. Guys would come to me and say, "Hey, we got an apartment across from a suspect's house. I'd like to be able to sit back from the window and videotape it." What they really want to do is probably sit in the living room and watch TV.
Yeah.
But I made, plug and play kits where they could set up the camera near the window and just, dummy plugs and plug it into the kit with a big monitor and a joystick. And I'd make all that from total scratch, even the controls for the joystick.
So talking about your surveillance work, is there a high-profile case or cases that you actually did work for?
Yeah, there's several, but so Rochester had two record-breaking armored car robberies. One was the Brinks job. I think it was $10.5 million. That was at their facility where they park the trucks and store the cash. And then that one was interesting because there was a retired cop involved in that. He was supposedly kidnapped. He was the only one taken from the facility and dumped several miles away, and he makes it to a bar, has a few drinks, and calls the police to report it. We ended up doing a camera on his place. He was definitely involved in it. It had IRA ties, and there was a lot of twists and turns on it. But anyways, what struck me, memory-wise, the camera I put on his house, this is before IP cameras, I put the camera up, it looks like a utility box, ran about 1,500 foot of coax, and then microwaved it across the Genesee River, which is a pretty good stretch, to this large warehouse that the sheriff's department kept their boats in, and had great video there. We're videotaping it, and then probably 3-4 months later, we're going to take it all down. He was going to be arrested. I've got all the brass there, FBI. Everybody's watching this video. In about 10 minutes, they're gonna call the signal, and they're going to roll in and arrest him. And all of a sudden, the video starts crashing. But it's like a cycle. So I step out. I can't figure out what it is. It's got to be interference. I step outside. There's a Navy minesweeper. Right on the lake, parked next to the warehouse, and they have to fire up their radar an hour before they go out to the lake by maritime law. And every time that radar swung around, it took my video out. But from a technical aspect, that's what comes to mind. But again, being in the technical surveillance unit, we were part of every major investigation there was over that 21-year period. The AMSA job, that had a lot of twists and turns.
The robbery took place here at the Buy-Right Market on East River Road at 7:20 this morning. This is the truck involved in the robbery. The $10.8 million in cash was supposed to be delivered to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York in Buffalo. An hour after the mammoth heist, about a dozen police investigators were at the Armored Motor Service of America headquarters trying to piece the story together. The specifics may not be forthcoming for some time, but this is what we know now. The armored truck owned by Armored Motor Service of America left its post on Scottsville Road. From there, the guard stopped at the Buy-Right Market on East River. While one guard was in the store, police say two men forced their way into the truck at gunpoint and tied up the driver. They then subdued the other guard when she returned. The armored truck was driven to this grassy field on Bailey Road. This map shows the route they took to the field less than a mile away. This field soon became the main focus of the investigation. At least a half dozen sheriff's deputies combed the area with the help of a police dog. You can still see the tire tracks from where the robbers parked the truck. This is where they made their frantic transfer of money into another vehicle, possibly a gray van. Police say the robbers dropped plenty of bank receipts and other papers in their haste to make that transfer. Investigators scoured the area looking for leads for most of the morning.
How about in terms of the suspects? Where are they right now?
We have no idea. We're still determining that. We're in the stages right now of interviewing both the victims and getting the complete information on the case.
The guards eventually freed themselves and drove the armored truck back to their Scottsville Road base. The suspects, meanwhile, took off from Bailey Road and escaped on the thruway headed east.
Part of that AMSA job, we had a prominent attorney, defense attorney in Rochester that was involved in all that. And we're investigating him, and we don't have enough to go directly on him yet. So we go on kind of peripheral guy that's tight with him. And we ended up surreptitiously taking his Cadillac Escalade and wiring it with a GPS tracker and audio inside the Escalade. And so what we did was we got a exact same make, year, model vehicle. We didn't have the equipment, so we went to the FBI in Buffalo. Said, yeah, bring your car out here. You can practice wiring it up, where you're going to put it and everything else. It's the middle of a snowstorm. We wire the truck up, take it out for a test drive to see how it's going to sound. It sounded beautiful. We steal the suspect's car, and there's kind of a side story to that there's a state police captain that knows the suspect and says, hey, he's a big police buff. He goes to this bar every Friday night. I'll roll in there and take him out to dinner, and you can steal his truck and wire it up, which we did. He takes him out, buys him. The other guy, actually, the suspect bought the captain the dinner. It was a steak dinner. He doesn't eat it. He takes it home, but I'm getting to that. Anyways, we wire up the truck, and the captain takes the steak dinner back to the wire room because we're also doing a wiretap on the guy's phone. And there's the guys in the wire room working the wire, eating that nice steak dinner the suspect bought. Call comes in. It's the suspect calling a buddy, bragging about how he went out to dinner with the state police captain and bought him dinner.
Oh.
But so now the roads are dry in Rochester, and that bug sounded like shit. All you heard was tire noise, and that was, everybody's looking at us. What did you, really, that happens.
So when this fascinates me. So you take this guy's car. I mean, obviously you got the warrants to do all. You take this guy's car. Where do you take it, and how long do you have to get this stuff in there?
It was a dead of winter. It was freezing, and we took it. We were near a shopping mall, so we took it around the corner behind the shopping mall, and it's nighttime, so we're with lights and everything else. We took photos of where everything was in the truck. By the way, we took our same make, model, year, parked it where his car was parked, so nobody else would take the spot, and two, if they happen to drive by, he thinks his truck's still parked there. But we had to rehearse because we knew exactly the tools we'd need, where we're putting this thing, and what wire we were going to grab for power, because we worked on it for probably about 10 days, messing around with the.
So when you actually go to put it in, how long does it take you to get it in there?
It took us probably a half hour.
And then you get it right back in place, and he never has any idea.
Never had a clue. We've done that numerous times.
Wow.
When GPS, I started this back in 92. And again, everything was analog. They didn't have GPS trackers back then. They had what they called bumper beepers. They were RF. They were little box. It was basically a radio transmitter, and it put out a beep every second or so. And then your car would look like a Russian troller or a porcupine. When I say Russian troller, the spy ships. Yeah. You'd have an antenna array, 4 antennas on the roof, and it would determine by how long it took that signal to get to each antenna, which is just not even a microsecond, it's quicker than that, what direction the car is. And by signal strength, you could kind of figure out how far away the car was. When GPS trackers first came out, they were such energy suckers, you would have to hardwire them to the car. And the antenna would have to see sky. It could only shoot through glass. You couldn't just slap it under the car and have it work. So we would have to steal the suspect's car and bring it into a local firehouse or we've done in other cops' garages that live nearby. Mm-hmm. Same thing, same make, year, model, color. We would park in the same spot we stole the suspect's car from.
So you're actually listening to what's going on inside the vehicle with this?
Yeah.
How close do you have to be? Is it pushing it out?
Well, the newer stuff works off the cellular network, right. So you're listening to it at the office.
Yeah.
Regardless of where he is.
But back in the day, you had to be.
Back in the day, you had to be within an RF range.
Wow.
And it depended on a couple of things: geography, competing RF signals, buildings.
So you're on his car, you're on his phone. Anything else? Are you?
Yeah, it's kind of neat. I kind of find the technical stuff kind of cool. But again, when I first started, you set up a wiretap. It was 3 Marantz, analog tape recorders and an old Akemium pen register. It's like the size of a suitcase almost. It would take up half the wire room. Nowadays, now that everything's digital, our T3 system was 2 6-foot computer racks filled with like 7 different computers, a couple for recording, originals, copies, all on DVD, one computer just to intercept next telephones, and the technology keeps changing.
Yeah.
But anyways, I could sit at a computer display and set up a wiretap just off the keyboard
Wow.
instead of having the actual target's line come into our office. So that's our secure room where it gets set up, and then we'd have 3 wire rooms, actual wire rooms, where the officers sit the wires, and it's kind of cool. They would sit at a computer display. If it's a cellular phone, it would show where the guy's calling from by cellular triangulation between the cell towers. We'd have a big flat screen TV on the wall with a pull camera shot of his house. Another big flat screen TV that shows exactly where he is, because we got a GPS tracker on his car.
Wow.
It's pretty cool.
So
especially considering where I came from in 1992.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you get this guy?
Oh
Ultimately?
yeah.
And what was he charged with? Do you remember?
Well, one of them was charged with homicide. There was a homicide involved in it. The prominent defense attorney, and I don't want to bring up names, we actually did a 4-kilo reversal buy bust on him. So he got charged with that conspiracy to. There's again a lot of twists and turns in this one. We had a CI, professional CI, but he was making hundreds of thousands of dollars being a CI for the FBI in relation to organized crime. And the FBI mentioned, hey, do you think you can do it? He says, yeah, I know some people in Rochester. So he set up the reversal buy bust. But he's in Florida in a bar, and he gets in a fight with, unbeknown to him, a couple of off-duty FBI agents. So he gets in a brawl with them, and because of that fight, Internal Affairs starts to investigate the fight, and it turns out the 2 FBI agents were dirty, and they got locked up for some internal stuff. Yeah, you could write a book on this on this case. A lot of the different twists and turns. It's been so long ago, I've forgotten, but you could write a book on this case.
Well, it's got to be so interesting to have that I don't know, that look into someone's world when they have no idea that somebody's listening to them. The things you got to hear and come across. It's fascinating. It's incredibly fascinating.
Well, the guy we wired his truck, you could hear him pretty clear if he wasn't driving on the road, but he, again, you do, anybody that's been involved in T3s, you can listen for a while. If it's not related to the specific crimes in the court order, you have to minimize, you have to shut it all down and then come back into it and periodically check it. But I remember sitting in the wire room one night that the guy's bitching that he took this girl to one of those in Jamaica, to one of those resorts that it's like topless or in swinger style, and she wouldn't put out. He's complaining about that. And she's lucky she didn't, because he just found out he's got gonorrhea. You hear stuff like that. Yeah.
So do they, as part of the criminal case, at some point, as part of discovery, or what, are they given copies of everything that you've heard, whether it had to do with the case or not?
Once the investigation's done, after a certain amount of time, you have to notify everybody that came up on that wire whether they were part of the criminal conspiracy or whatever you're investigating. Anyways, if his mother actually happens to call him, she's got to be notified that she was intercepted on a wiretap.
How is that? Is it by letter or in person? How's something like that happen?
I imagine it's by letter. I've never been involved in that.
Yeah, because could you imagine going around to every single person, much less trying to identify them all? Yeah. Holy smokes. So it sounds like you were involved in a lot of cases, both with SIS and even as part of the tactical unit. Is there a particular case that stands out in your memory?
No, they're all kind of, the 2 AMSA jobs, or AMSA and Brinks, did a lot of homicide cases. You'll have homicide will come to us and say, hey, I've got an informant. A friend of his came to him and admitted to killing this person. He thinks he can pick him up in the car and get him to talk about it again. So we'll wire up the CI's car with video and audio. I've done that numerous occasions. So again, back to the analog days, and I remember we were doing one in its old cassette recorder. right when the guy's saying, yeah, I killed that motherfucker, the tape ran out. So we're hitting the buttons, flipping the tape. We don't normally flip them, but it got it back in. That became a huge contention in court.
I bet.
Both me and my partner had to go to court and testify. He definitely said it. Everybody heard it over the wire. We don't have it recorded because, as you can tell, it's at the very end of the tape.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, what about Chicken Hawk? I got that in my notes. What's that about?
Well, that comes to the question, is there
An
I think a
incident?
particular arrest that comes to mind. So I'm new to the TAC unit. And again, I got up there after 11 months, so I feel like I've got to prove myself. And I remember the first day in uniform in the TAC unit, TAC unit always backed each other up, even though you're two-man cars. TAC guy would call out with a traffic stop. Next thing you know, you got 8 TAC guys there. But anyways, our boss had called out with a suspicious person. So I roll up and I grab another, one of them's walking away. So I grab that person. He's pulling away a little bit. And I forcibly kind of body slam him on the back of the car. The whole back of the car goes like this. All the other TAC guys across the street. So I thought, yeah, good impression. I hope he doesn't file a complaint. But anyways, being the new guy, again, we were responsible for all the prostitution arrests in the city, including the male prostitutes. We called them chicken hawks. And they usually hung out in a particular part of the city. And when you do the males, they're a little bit more high risk. So we never picked them up and drove anywhere with them. I pull up and one of them comes out. I wave him in. He gets in the car. We get talking, and I made a deal with him. And I don't remember the deal, and I'm not going to tell you what it was if I did. But
talk about an uncomfortable conversation. Yeah. Holy smokes!
Yeah, so there's an arrest signal, and I'm giving the arrest signal, and nobody's coming. Meanwhile, this guy's got his hand on my leg, and he's massaging my leg. And he keeps getting closer and closer to my groin. I'm giving the arrest signal, giving it again. I'm this close to just saying, fuck it, and bail out of the car. and the arrest team shows up, and they're all laughing their asses off. So I remember the guy's name, Dallas Davis. And the reason I remember it, he wanted to take me back to his apartment. A week later, he was arrested for stabbing a John to death in his apartment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So has there ever been a time where you've gotten that feeling where you just thought something's just not right with this? Yeah,
I'm running a body wire for an undercover street buy. And by this time, I've done hundreds of them. I mean, we used to do details where we'd go out and make 6, 7 buys for 50 days straight. And they were just ID and let loose. And then we'd round up all the dope dealers at once and make a temporary impact on the street. But anyways, the undercover is making a buy on a main drag, one of the main roads going through the city. And I'm parked around the corner driving a Ford Taurus, which is what all the investigators drive. And I got antennas on the car for the Kell equipment, the body wire equipment. So I'm trying to stay out of sight. The undercovers get really mad if the tech guy ends up getting burned because nobody will sell to them for a while. So I'm around the corner out of sight. The undercover makes the buy, and he's walking back towards me. And I would always kind of pull away, just keep that distance. You know, I'm within range on the Cal, and I can still respond and back up the undercover if something goes wrong. But I would get out of sight. I literally had a voice screaming in my head. Stay put, stay put, stay put. Undercover comes around the corner, and the guy comes around the corner right behind him, taking his T-shirt, putting it over his head, make a mask out of it. So I get on the radio, robbery, robbery. Next, the guy pulls out a gun, gun. So now I bail out. He puts the gun to the back of the undercover's head, and the undercover turns, sees it, grabs the gun and pushes it down. The guy shoots the undercover in the leg. We didn't know at the time that by grabbing the gun, he retarded the slide and created a stovepipe. And as I'm trying to get an angle running towards the undercover, the guy's got the gun right at the undercover, and I can see the muscles kind of flex in his forearm. The other plainclothes guys to the right of me are responding now, and they start shooting at the suspect. And now the suspect's trying to shoot back at the backup. And I can see the rounds hitting that building that I talked about, and they're not even coming close to him. So literally a voice went off in my head, you got to get in this. So I ended up shooting that guy. And I'm not emotional over the suspect, who survived, by the way.
Any idea when you look back, when you think back, was there something that you saw or something that just
No,
caused
I've gone over
voice?
this. I've gone over this in my head dozens of times. There was no cue for that voice to go off my head, and it's happened a couple times in my life, unrelated to the job. I remember village I lived in growing up. There, the one traffic light in the village. It's kind of a blind intersection from the left, and I used to fly through that light because as a kid I used to love going up the hill and going around that curve as fast as I can. The 100th time I go through, a voice was screaming in my head, slow down, slow down. I literally came to a stop in the car, went through the red light from that blind side. So I can't explain it.
When you look at this shooting, was the robbery completely random, or was it related to the drug buy?
It's not the guy he bought the drugs from. The guy was hanging out with the group, saw that he had money, and was probably going to rip him for the money and the dime bag or nickel bag, whatever he bought. I don't recall, but in court he claimed he needed diapers for his baby. But,
Of course, right? And
Yeah.
so, what's the relationship after that between you and the undercover guy? Were you
good.
his best friend now?
It was good. I was shaken up more for him than he was for himself, because I remember, they take you downtown and you get interviewed by internal affairs, homicide interviews you. That was all done, just got done, and he came back from the hospital and walked in the room.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I already treated and released.
Yeah.
And he was shot in the leg.
Yeah.
Already
It
treated.
was a through and through.
Wow.
But I lost it then.
Yeah.
I got up, gave him a big hug.
Yeah.
You have to. So you're running the body wire. You have to understand you're probably the prime person that's responsible for their safety, more so than their sergeant. It comes down to you.
Yeah.
And back to the old analog days. Like I said, I started doing that in '92, and I was probably working with equipment from the '70s. So it wasn't the best equipment, didn't have the greatest range. So it really created a lot of anxiety in you to make sure you're receiving that signal well enough to hear and know what's going on. And you're also repeating it out to the rest of the undercover teams.
Are you a
So I
one-man
felt-
show? Does this all fall to you in SIS? Was it just you, or were there other
It was
other
on
investigators
occasion.
doing the same
My unit, we started with 4 people and we went down to 2, and at one point we were 3. But most of that day I was running it by myself. Most days I was running it by myself. So on occasion, my partner would go out with me if you didn't have something going on.
And generally speaking, if you're in the car and you're running that, if your partner from your unit isn't with you, they don't put somebody else with you to molest be an overwatch for you or anything like that.
No.
Interesting.
No.
Was there ever a time in your career where you did something that you later realized probably wasn't the best idea?
Yeah, a lot of the stuff comes down to being new in the positions I was in, but it's another attack unit story. I'm pretty new in the attack unit. It's the first time I'm going to be the John for the female prostitutes. And I came from the car beat where all the prostitutes are. So they all know me and I know them. So I put on a long curly wig that we had in the TAC unit, glued on a big fake Fu Manchu mustache. In fact, it's funny. One of the guys in the TAC unit was driving me to where we're going to have the briefing for this detail, and somebody had stopped a CI of his or something, and he wanted to stop, and he's driving his uniform patrol car. He's in uniform, part of the detail. So we go to that call first, and I get out of the car, and I'm just hanging out by the car. All the other cops are like, "Who's that scumbag leaning in your car?" But anyways, the detail's going. I get my first deal with a prostitute, and she starts getting a little nervous. In fact, at one point she goes, "Is that a wig?" And I'm like, no, that's not a wig. And by the way, at the time, we have a prolific serial killer working Rochester, Shawcross. I don't know if you heard of him. Arthur Shawcross. He killed like 13 or 14 prostitutes in Rochester, all out of my old car beat. While at least half that time I was working at car beat as uniform. And by the way, the FBI comes out with their profile. And their profile says it's either a cop wannabe, a cop, and that person's real familiar with that area. And I'm like, shit, that's me.
Oh, and I got a wig.
But anyways, the girl starts getting nervous. I struck the deal with her. She starts getting nervous. I'm given the signal, and the way this works is you'd have two other undercover cars following you from a little bit of a distance. And once you start tapping the crap out of your tail, out of your brakes, they would call the uniform and say, yep, he's got a deal. And the uniform would be back a little ways, would come up and pull me over like it's a normal traffic stop, pull the girl out and arrest her. Well, I'm tapping the shit out of the brakes and nothing's happening. I lost my undercover spotters. So now I'm like, shit, what do I do now? I don't want to lose this arrest. It's the first horror detail I've done in the TAC unit. I'm the new guy, the youngest guy to come up. So I pull in the parking lot, pull out my badge, go, I'm a cop, you're under arrest. Well, she freaks out, bails out of the car. I chase her down, and my portable radio, which had to be off and hidden in the car, is still in the car. I've got her by the wrist. She's fighting. I'm this long-haired guy with a Fu Manchu mustache. A van pulls over with three guys saying, hey, man, motherfucker, leave the girl alone. And I'm like, I'm a cop. Bullshit, where's your ID? Leave her. So I pulled my gun out. I didn't point it at him. I got it at the ground. I said, I'm a fucking cop. Get the fuck out of here. They take off. I finally get her in arrest. Next thing I see her sirens coming from all over the city. Remember, we got a serial killer killing prostitutes. And here a call comes in. This long-haired guy is armed with a gun, fighting with a prostitute.
Yeah.
So I don't have time to get to my radio and call everybody off. And the guys that show up, by now I got the badge out, my ID out, I've taken the wig off, hoping they recognize me. So yeah, if I had to do that all over again, I would have just let her out of the car and arrest her later. There's things you learn from, mistakes you make in your youth.
What are some of your best memories from the job?
The different people you work with, they were a lot of fun. The dark humor, it's funny. I got that from the job. You bring up the trooper pushing the car out. The job will change you, and I really don't think for the worse in me. It just opened my eyes and see reality. I do the same things every other cop and retired cop does. She lets me sit where I can see the doors, and you're really observant. But the people you work with, and again, it creates this dark humor with you. And I've brought it up a few times around friends or parties, and I'm like, maybe that was a mistake. They don't get it,
That's the being able to see the door. I mean, that's real. We just went out to dinner the other night, and the people we met, they beat us to the table first. And I was like, oh man, I had to sit with my back to the door. It's the most uncomfortable meal I've ever had. So, any interactions, come across any well-known or famous people during your career?
Yeah, one comes to mind. I was at a NATIA National Convention in Sacramento, California. And I don't know if I should go on a side tangent on this, but anyways, I'm out. We were staying in my partner and I were staying at a hotel not far from where the convention was, and I'm waiting for him to get ready. We're going to go out for the night or get a few drinks or something. I'm out by the pool having a drink, and trust me, this will come back around to the celebrity. But anyways, there's the rooms next to the pool. There's a lady in there wearing nothing but a thong, getting ready for the evening. She's doing her hair and everything, and I'm like 30 feet away, no. But anyways, my partner comes out, we go in the bar, and the bar's crazy. There's all kinds of very attractive women singing, dancing, playing the piano, and it turns out they're an acting troupe. Found this out later from a theater that's next door, and another troupe was there to relieve them. And my partner goes, "Hey, that's TJ's hooker at the end of the bar. That's TJ Hooker's partner at the end of the bar." And I said, "You're right." He goes, "We couldn't remember the guy's name." So I call I'm in California, my ex-wife now is in New York, and I call her, and I'm so drunk I get the time zone wrong. I'm thinking it's 9 o'clock her time, midnight my time. It's 3 a.m. her time. I'm like, "TJ Hooker, TJ, you got to look, who was his partner?" She's like, "What?" I said, "You got to get on the internet and look up who her partner is. We're sitting three seats away from him." So it's Adrian Sameta. So I tell my partner, and he goes, "I'm going to go talk to him." So he goes over there, and he starts kind of boosting up. He goes, "Adrian Sameta, I'm a huge fan. You're the reason I became a cop." And he's just greasing him up. He ended up buying us drinks all night and gave us tickets to the show that's going on in the theater because he was the producer. And in walks the woman that was in nothing but a thong. It's his girlfriend.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he introduced me to my girlfriend. I wanted to say, yeah, we've almost met. We kind of met.
Through the course of your career, was there anybody that you, one or others, more than one, that you consider to be a mentor?
My mentors were my FTOs. It's funny. I was watching, happened to catch an episode of another cop show on TV, The Rookie. And his FTO would slam on the brakes and say, "I'm shot. Where am I? Where are you? What are you going to do?" My secondary FTO pulled that crap on me all the time. But I respected my FTOs. They were mentors for me. And I got to meet a lot of fantastic investigators from my agency, state police. Being an SIS, I worked with just about every agency there is, the state police, the DEA, ATF, Marshal Service. And I had a lot of respect for a lot of the older, experienced investigators. They were tenacious, they were smart, and a lot of integrity.
We brought it up in your introduction, and I didn't talk about it yet, but you did some part-time work for DOD. How'd you fall into that, and what was that?
So, my partner at one of the NATIA events, national conventions, I've been going to these things for years, meets the guy that was in charge of the Irish National Police Technical Surveillance Unit back in the 70s when the IRA was very active. And, if they found out who he was, they would have killed him. He's done surreptitious entries on places that were booby-trapped to blow up. But anyways, very experienced guy. He got the contract with the Department of Defense. This is right after 9/11. The Special Forces decided they needed some specialized training that they hadn't had. And so he got a contract with the Department of Defense, and it started with a 5-week basic course in electronic surveillance and physical surveillance. And we got to the point where brought in role players that the SF guys had never met or seen, and it all would accumulate into, we teach them the basics, go out and do a few exercises, and all the exercises were parts of an overall picture that they'd have to put together at the end, intelligence picture of a terrorist attack, following the money, following the bad guys, using the electronic devices and training we gave them. I went over on like 7 different occasions, but they very quickly spun up we were doing a 5-week, basic 5-week advanced courses. They very quickly spun up. They didn't have the time to do it anymore because it got extremely busy for them not too long after 9/11. We ended up doing mission-specific training for strictly the Navy SEALs. We didn't know what we had no idea what those, you could glean a little bit off of it, like we need to go into an apartment complex surreptitiously and videotape the names on the doors, and then we'd show them how to do it. When we observed their practice runs in their facilities are just amazing. We could kind of glean it because by the language, the writing was on the doors where they were going, and then you read newspaper articles, and you could literally read between the lines that, hey, I think I trained him for that, and that was really cool because you met a lot of very A-type, sharp people. And I remember the second time I went, my partner, who had done this a few times more than me, was kind of in charge of the training. And he come down with the flu. So I get over to Germany, and he's like, you got to take over the mobile surveillance. And I met these guys, I met the personality type, because this is my second trip before, and I thought, oh my God, I was nervous as hell. So I gave them all the instruction on how we're going to do mobile surveillance, and who's going to be the lead, and how you change over, and how you call it out, and everything else. And we get in the cars, and I'm nervous as hell. I'm in Germany, got no idea where I'm going. This is before GPS. And I'm driving down the road, and I get to my first traffic circle, and I see all 7 of them in a line behind me. So I'm like, let me screw with them. I go around the traffic circle. It looked like a centipede going around that traffic. So I smiled to myself, I got this. I pulled over, and being former military, I knew how to I was hoping I knew how to deal with them. I got them all in a group, and I bitched at them. I went, I started yelling, you know this, I taught you this, blah, blah, blah. And it gave me a lot of confidence, because I've been doing it for years between the TAC unit and narcotics surveillance. It was second nature to do mobile surveillance. But I'll tell you, they're so sharp, they put us out of business, because we did this for a couple of years, and I got to know one of the guys that they really took an interest to it. They are a sharp group. They'll take what you taught them, and they'll run with it, expand on it, make it even better, and they'll teach it in-house. So we put ourselves out of business as far as that went, or they put us out of business.
What's one of the biggest changes you've seen in law enforcement over the course of your career?
One, I would say technology. We kind of talked about that, how I started with analog. And I retired 13 years ago, so I can only imagine some of the drones are becoming very popular now. But without giving too much away, I would not, if you're a bad guy, I would not sit around with your iPhone. Let's put it that way. And the wokeness. It's unbelievable, incredible. So the job I had after I left the police department was for a company called Hitachi. Rochester has a citywide camera system, overt camera system, like many cities do. We hired a company that put in the first 50 of those cameras in the infrastructure, and then I expanded that. Every time they wanted a new camera, it was my unit that did that, and we maintained it till shortly before I retired. They contracted the maintenance out, and I ended up working for the company. So basically, I did the same job for almost 10 years that I did when I left the department. In fact, I used to go to the same office every morning. But anyways, during the George Floyd riots, I'm sitting home and watching live from these cameras, because I could log into the cameras and watch them. And I'm seeing people get in cops' faces, yelling and spitting on them and everything else. And they're burning cars, and the cops aren't doing anything about it. This is where I say the wokeness. When I came in a job, that would have never been tolerated, never been permitted. If I was still in a job now and somebody did that to me, I'd pull out the nightstick, whack them, go to headquarters, turn in my gun belt, say I'm done, you know.
Kind of somewhat related to that, potentially. How do you think the job impacted your family? Did it have an impact on your family?
No, not really. One, I had the advantage when I got into SIS, my hours were primarily Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So, you know, I got whatever holidays off I wanted. So that made things easier. The other thing is, I never defined myself as a cop. You know, you walk into other policemen's houses and it's just loaded with police paraphernalia. You know them, you know that their only friends are other cops. It was something I did. It never identified me. You know, I still kept this same core group of friends I had before going on the job, I still have now. You know, and most of my coworkers are acquaintances. They're not like best friends or anything. It just never defined me. So it wasn't really a big impact to leave it. Plus, when I left, you know, I went to the same office. I saw the same guys for quite a while until I moved, you know, from New York to Tennessee.
When you look back over your career, any regrets?
No, I just kind of regret not for leaving the job. I regret the job I left. So I got to know this integrator through the job. Integrator is somebody, he owned a company that installed cameras at large casinos and different chain retail stores, which is a little bit up my alley. I wasn't going to be an installer. He wanted me to do sales, and he wanted to break into. He had a couple of law enforcement clients, and it brought a lot of credibility to him to be able to bring me in and introduce me as, you know, retired law enforcement, and I did the electronic surveillance. And I liked that part of it. I liked the networking, but it was sales, and I can't stand sales. And I'll tell you, with sales, you put a lot of effort into a lot of different jobs, and 10% of them might pan out 6 months later. That's not me. I like working hands-on, installing something or fixing something for the immediate gratification. I like that. And I just hated that job, doing the sales part of it. Just hated it. So about 6 months later, the company that got the contract to maintain the Rochester City cameras called me and offered me a job, and I did that for the next 10 years, pretty much strictly that for like 5 years, and then they got me into other clients and sales. I didn't like that part of it. So I did that about 10 years, and finally I started getting burned out of the sales part. But back to the original question, my regret would be kind of pulling that trigger too fast and taking that job that I really did not end up liking. But it worked out in the end. I ended up with a job I loved.
So was it the job offer that caused you to retire, or was there another?
Yeah, I had a son in college, so it was more of a monetary thing. I could collect my retirement, and he was paying me well, so a really decent paycheck on top of that, which really helped pay for his college. And that's the only reason. I loved the job. If it wasn't a monetary decision, because I was paying out of pocket for college, I probably would have done 35 years on the job, you know.
Do you miss it?
A little bit. I miss the creativity, and I miss when I say creativity, you know, I'd have an investigator come to me and say, I need a camera on this guy's garage, and there's no way to put one anywhere. So I'll go do the survey. I remember one case, go do the site survey, find out what the environment's like, and basically you'd go back to the shop and build a camera into something that'll fit in that environment. In this one particular case, he needed a shot inside the guy's garage, and the only utility pole or anything around was in the middle of the guy's garden in his yard. So what I got was one of those utility pedestals. You see them near the telephone poles and that, and put the camera in that, and literally got his wife working in the garden and everything else. And they never discovered the cameras. I missed that creativity. And I missed the people you work with. You know, there are a lot of good people and funny people. I mean, it's like any other job. If there's downtime and boredom and you're used to things being a little more faster paced, guys will find ways to amuse themselves and others, and it becomes a circus, really.
So it's been a while. You said 13 years
Yeah.
since you left the job. What are you doing now?
Well, I retired from Hitachi a year and a half ago. And this past summer, I got Lyme disease, which really knocked me on my ass for a few months. And so now, and hopefully I've gotten over that. It's not in remission, it's just gone. Mm-hmm. So I've been focusing on my health. I'm in the gym every day. My wife and I are both into motorcycles. We travel a lot. We have property still in New York, so we go to New York and back. But we have some motorcycle trips planned.
Do you have any advice for someone that might be considering the job, or maybe someone who's considering retiring?
I always I've had a few people, friends will find out, know you're a cop, and, so our daughter wants to be a cop. Do you have any advice for her? I'd say, look, one, do not take criminal justice in college. The police departments do not care that you took criminal justice. Two, just set yourself up for a second career. If you're going to go to college, take something like accounting or something education or something that'll set you up for a second career. I got very fortunate. Guys used to tell me while I was in the tech unit, oh, you're setting yourself up for a great job. I never believed them. And I eventually did. I loved my job with Hitachi. It paid fantastic. And I liked the work other than the sales part. And just shoot high. You don't want to be a patrolman for 20 years. I personally wouldn't. I know guys that have, and I don't know how they do it. It would burn me out. I got burned out of 3 years of it, and it, again, when it comes to shooting high, if I had to do it all over again, I might have tried for the FBI or DEA or somebody, But
what about the guy that's thinking about retiring?
I just say make sure you got something to do on the outside,
Yeah.
and cherish the times you're still there, because I again, when it comes to burnout, you might be, God, I can't wait to get off. What really got me to retire was in service. I couldn't stand going to in service every 3 months or so. It just got so old. And I remember watching it when I was younger, watching the old timers, thinking, boy, are they bitch and moan a lot. After you're about your 90th in service, you understand why. But enjoy the smaller things of the job, the people you hang out with, the people you have lunch with, the joking around that happens, because to me, that was the best part of the job.
Tim, I want to thank you for sharing your journey with the badge with us today. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. Good stuff.
You're welcome.